everyone, and welcome back to Velvet Moments. Purple Heart. Sometimes, the most unforgettable stories are not born on stage beneath thousands of flashing lights. They are not part of official schedules. They are not announced by reporters or captured by giant concert cameras. Sometimes, the moments that stay in people's hearts the longest are the quiet ones. And that is exactly what happened during BTS's unforgettable night in Mexico City. The city was glowing with excitement. Streets were overflowing with ARMY from all around the world, purple banners waved in the air, and music from BTS could be heard from cafes, taxis, and tiny souvenir shops across the historic center of the city. Mexico had been waiting for this moment for so long, and the energy surrounding BTS felt almost magical. Earlier that evening, BTS attended an important formal event at the magnificent National Palace, where they were welcomed by Claudia Sheinbaum. The atmosphere was elegant and grand. Cameras flashed endlessly as the members greeted officials, diplomats, and cultural representatives. Everything looked formal and carefully organized. But even in such a serious environment, many people couldn't stop noticing the natural closeness between Park Jimin and Jungkook. It was not something loud or dramatic. It was the little things. The way Jungkook instinctively slowed his pace whenever Jimin stopped walking. The way Jimin quietly leaned closer whenever Jungkook spoke. The way their eyes constantly searched for each other in crowded rooms filled with important people. Several staff members later described their chemistry as effortless. And honestly, that may be the perfect word for Jikook. Because after all these years together, their bond no longer feels forced or performative. Feels natural, like two people who simply understand each other without trying. But nobody expected the night to become even more emotional after the official event ended. According to stories shared by restaurant staff and people nearby, Jimin and Jungkook later left the palace area quietly with only a few staff members accompanying them. Instead of returning immediately to their hotel, they reportedly wanted to experience a peaceful night in Mexico City away from the chaos of schedules and rehearsals. And that decision led to one of the sweetest moments ARMY has talked about in years. The restaurant they visited was hidden in one of the quieter streets near the historic district. It was warm, intimate, and beautifully decorated with traditional Mexican lanterns hanging from the ceiling. Soft guitar music echoed gently through the room while candles flickered across wooden tables. It was not luxurious in an overwhelming way. It was cozy, comfortable, romantic without even trying to be. Witnesses said Jungkook entered first, casually looking around the restaurant as if making sure the atmosphere felt right. A few seconds later, Jimin walked in wearing a simple dark hoodie and a soft smile that immediately changed Jungkook's expression. The moment Jungkook saw him, his entire face relaxed. That tiny detail alone made several people secretly smile. Because sometimes affection is visible in the smallest reactions. The restaurant staff tried their best not to disturb them, but naturally, people noticed how deeply comfortable the two were around each other. Jungkook poured drinks for Jimin multiple times throughout the dinner without needing to ask what he wanted. Jimin quietly adjusted Jungkook's sleeve when it slipped down while he was eating. At one point, Jungkook apparently noticed Jimin wasn't touching a particular dish and immediately exchanged plates with him without saying a word. No discussion. No explanation. Just instinct. And honestly, that was what made the entire scene feel so intimate. Not exaggerated romance. Not dramatic gestures. Just quiet understanding. The kind that only develops after years of caring for someone. One waiter later shared that the two spent long moments simply talking softly while smiling at each other. Sometimes they laughed loudly like best friends. Other times they sat in comfortable silence, listening to the music while watching the lights outside the restaurant window. And strangely enough, many people said the silence between them felt even more emotional than their conversations. Because silence becomes beautiful when two people feel safe enough to share it. At one point during the dinner, Jimin reportedly became fascinated by the colorful handmade lanterns hanging above their table. He kept looking up at them with childlike curiosity, admiring the warm orange and gold reflections dancing across the ceiling. Jungkook noticed immediately. Witnesses say he said something quietly to Jimin. Nobody knows what it was. But whatever he whispered caused Jimin to burst into the softest, brightest laughter of the night. The kind of laughter where his shoulders shook slightly while he covered his mouth. And Jungkook? He simply stared at him. Not for 1 second. Not casually. but with that long, gentle look ARMY knows so well. A look that feels full of admiration. One restaurant employee later described the moment by saying, "It honestly felt like they forgot other people were around." That sentence spread quickly online after fans began discussing the sighting. And soon social media exploded with emotional reactions from ARMY around the world. Some fans talked about how peaceful Jimin always looks beside Jungkook. Others pointed out how protective Jungkook becomes naturally whenever Jimin is near him. Many longtime fans even said this dinner reminded them of old BTS memories from years ago. Those tiny behind-the-scenes moments where Jikook seemed happiest when simply spending quiet time together. But perhaps the most surprising part of the story involved President Claudia Sheinbaum herself. According to people connected to the event, there was a brief casual conversation after the formal dinner where she jokingly commented on how incredibly close Jimin and Jungkook seemed throughout the evening. The room reportedly burst into laughter. Jimin immediately became shy, lowering his head while smiling nervously. Meanwhile, Jungkook laughed and rubbed the back of his neck, a habit fans recognize instantly whenever he feels embarrassed. Even some officials present at the event reportedly found the interaction adorable. And honestly, it is easy to understand why. Because there is something deeply touching about seeing two global superstars behave so naturally with each other despite living under constant pressure and worldwide attention. For years, people have watched Jimin and Jungkook grow together. From nervous trainees chasing impossible dreams, to exhausted young artists traveling across continents, to world-famous performers standing in sold-out stadiums. They experienced success together, pain together, growth together. And perhaps that is why even the smallest gestures between them carry emotional weight. Because history lives inside those tiny interactions. During the dinner, several guests noticed that Jungkook always positioned himself slightly closer to the outside of the restaurant whenever fans approached the windows. It was subtle but protective. Meanwhile, Jimin seemed completely relaxed beside him, occasionally smiling while listening to Jungkook speak enthusiastically about something. One fan later wrote online, "They looked less like celebrities and more like two people who genuinely enjoy existing beside each other." And honestly, that may be one of the most beautiful descriptions of Jikook ever written. As the night grew later, rain reportedly began falling lightly outside the restaurant. Mexico City's streets reflected golden lights across the wet pavement, creating a scene that many witnesses described as looking straight out of a movie. When Jimin and Jungkook finally left the restaurant, ARMY waiting nearby respectfully kept their distance. There was no screaming chaos, no aggressive crowding, just soft excitement. People seemed to understand instinctively that this moment was special. Jungkook walked slightly ahead at first, carefully checking the path through the narrow sidewalk. But after only a few steps he stopped and turned around immediately to make sure Jimin was still close behind him. And then came the moment that truly melted everyone's hearts. As Jimin caught up beside him, Jungkook gently touched the middle of Jimin's back and guided him toward the safer inner side of the sidewalk, farther from the street and passing vehicles. Such a tiny gesture. So simple. But those are always the moments that affect people the most. Because genuine care often appears unconsciously. You cannot fake habits like that. The rain continued softly while the two disappeared into the glowing streets of Mexico City together. Fans watched quietly as their figures slowly faded beneath the warm city lights. And somehow, the entire scene felt cinematic. Not because it was perfect, but because it felt real. No stage outfits. No scripted interviews. No performance. Just two people finding comfort in each other after a long, exhausting day beneath the weight of global fame. That is what made the night unforgettable. Later, countless ARMY shared emotional messages online describing how deeply touched they were by the story. One post became especially viral. In a world where everything around them is loud, they become quiet for each other. And honestly, that sentence perfectly captured the feeling of the entire evening. Because while stadiums may define BTS's success, moments like this reveal something far more human. Connection, trust, comfort. The kind of closeness that cannot be created overnight. Whether people see Jikook as soulmates, best friends, or simply two hearts deeply connected through years of shared life, one thing became undeniable after that night in Mexico. Their bond is impossible not to feel. Even strangers could see it. Even officials noticed it. Even a president was reportedly surprised by how naturally close they seemed. And maybe that is why the story touched so many people around the world. Because beneath all the fame, lights, and history-making concerts, people still long for something simple. Someone who looks for you first in crowded rooms. Someone who notices when you stop eating. Someone who quietly guides you away from danger without thinking twice. Someone who feels like home in the middle of chaos. And on that beautiful rainy night in Mexico City, Jimin and Jungkook seemed to become exactly that for each other. Not through grand declarations, but through soft smiles, gentle touches, quiet laughter, and the peaceful comfort of simply walking side by side beneath the lights of a sleeping city. Romantic dinner. A quiet night. Two hearts that seemed perfectly at ease together. And somewhere in the distance, Mexico City continued glowing softly around them, while army everywhere held on to the feeling that they had just witnessed something truly beautiful. Purple Heart.